giving. Thank you. So let me begin with our journey of Gokidu, how we actually started. Before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Pooja Pachigar, CEO and co-founder of Gokidu. And with me, I have my other co-founders. One of them I can see is Pranay Dixit. Um, so how we founded Gokidu? It was a it was a very interesting night because that was a night when our one of the co-founder, who is like a very good friend, Karan, he came home and he started sharing his interesting experience as becoming a sperm donor and some of the things which he discovered in the journey. Now, this wasn't new totally because our extended friends, who are some of them are like lesbian couples, they had here and there shared that story that, you know what, they wanted to have become a parent, but somehow the journey to find the sperm donor is extremely difficult. Some of them couldn't afford sperm bank, while some of them were having difficult experience with some of the other platforms like Facebook group and other marketplaces like Craigslist, etc. So then we tried and we started digging further in this entire scenario. And that's where we met Joe. So Joe is also one of a very key, I would say, component in our journey of starting the Gokidu, because some of the stories which Joe shared also gave us the idea that there is definitely something missing in this space. Uh, See, and Joe shared some of the stories which we were like never able to conceive as like, no, this is not possible, but it was true. So a special thank you to Joe, because of him we got like more further idea about the problem in the space. And then we further interviewed like almost 150 more lesbian couples, sperm donors, to hear what they have to say. And then we were like, okay, let's do something. Let's come up with something which has more clarity, which has more easy accessibility, as well as something which do not feel like why this journey is so difficult. Because already, for anybody who is looking to be a parent, if they are lesbian couple or having the infertility problem, they are going through a lot, and finding out the sperm donor is another level of complexity. So we wanted to come up with something which makes it easier. So we created this online mobile networking platform, which is like mobile app, which is more affordable. uh, we tried to address all the problems people face on the marketplaces or some other unregulated platform, like people get scams, etc. So we tried to eliminate it by putting some kind of processes. And one more thing which we encountered was like, so many people don't know about the legal landscape, so we tried to incorporate that as well by partnering with many fertility lawyers and etc. So I invite Pranay to just quickly play the video about like Gokidu, which will be like just 1 minute video, and then we'll get on with the Joe. Okay, so go ahead, Pranay.
Sure, let me do that.
So it's just like a very small sneak peek into what Gokidu is.
Want to start a family but unsure where to begin? Finding the right sperm or egg donor can feel overwhelming. You might be stuck around sperm banks or risky platforms which are full of confusion and scams. Soon enough, your excitement may turn into uncertainty and stress. Why worry when there's a safe, reliable solution at your fingertip? GoKidu, trusted path to finding the perfect donor. On GoKidu, you can access a vast pool of diverse donors, including verified ones. With just a few taps, you can explore their background and even ethnic heritage. If you're feeling lost among so many donors, don't worry. You can easily filter them by physical characteristics and background, or even distance, to find the best fit. On GoKidu, you can explore reviews and feedback from past recipients about their experiences with specific donor. Once you find donors, you can chat directly with them. Get to know their values, their personality and more before making your decision. Knowing the donor will bring confidence and a sense of credibility. With all the secure financial transactions plus our trusted delivery verification process, GoKidu gives you complete peace of mind. Here you can access legal contract templates and expert fertility lawyers to guide you on every step. Affordable donor matching, secure and reliable transactions, legal clarity. Enjoy all these features with our affordable subscription. GoKidu, we bring baby for all.
Thank you, Pranay. So it was pretty straightforward. We'll come to it by the end of the session. We'll give you some quick small demo of the GoKidu app. But let's begin finally with the Joe. So once again, thank you so much, Joe, for coming on this small event. And
my pleasure.
and I would really like it if you can give us your small brief introduction, followed by how did your journey started?
Sure. So I'll start back from when I first was introduced to the concept of being a sperm donor. I was in college and I had a brief affair with a woman. She was an older woman who was recently divorced, and I won't get into the details of that, but the experience of that led me to really appreciate what she was wanting. You know, she had wanted kids, her husband didn't, and then the first thing after they divorced, he married a much younger woman and she got her pregnant. And so her journey was kind of appealing to me. You know, I wanted to help her, and then after my experience with her, I looked into donating at a sperm bank. The sperm banks, and this was my first education, just how much money is made in the fertility industry. Some for good reason, and some is just plain greed, to be honest. You know, you would donate to a clinic, and they would pay at that time it was like $50, and then they might get 10 what they call straws from each ejaculate, which they basically divide a man's ejaculate up into what we call the layman's term is a vial, but it's really called a straw. And there's like 20 to 40 million sperm in a straw. And so then they would take that and sell it for, you know, $500 a pop or whatever. And I didn't like the fact that I wouldn't be able to know the outcome of the people that I helped, you know. So I didn't donate after being approved, and it's actually a somewhat difficult to be approved. So I went through that process, but then I got married, and I forgot all about it. And after I got divorced, I ended up being approached by some lesbian friends, and the lesbian friends asked me to be their donor, and they told me various places online to make connections with other women. And then, you know, I started reaching out to women that I made connections with, typically through Yahoo groups or even Craigslist. So
how was your experience with those groups as a very early? I mean, how many years are we talking about, like back?
So this was around 2008 or so. And you know, initially, so my very first conception was through shipping, actually. And my initial thought was, oh my gosh, this is going to be really easy. You know, I didn't realize how quick this could happen. And it was not for another year or so that I had another shipping conception. But most of the women who I helped, I encountered through almost exclusively through Yahoo groups.
Okay.
And Yahoo groups don't exist anymore. But then a few websites came along, the Known Donor Registry, which has since folded. And then Facebook groups kind of became a thing in 2012, 13-ish, somewhere near. And since then, there was, I think that's probably the majority of my connections. your competitor app, Just a Baby, um, it's not. Let's just say the quality is not as good. So, um, there's sometimes we make connection there, but typically it's through Facebook groups.
Groups. Okay.
Yeah.
So diving further, what kind of insights would you like to give for the future donors who are just starting their journey, or they are one or two donations ahead, like they're just donated one or two times? So
Right.
what would you say then?
Yeah. So, I think the biggest thing is you really need to kind of do your homework. And one second, my dog is barking here.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for new donors is to do a little homework. I think the biggest surprise to me initially was I was surprised to learn that because you're not working in a sperm bank, that you're exposed legally. That's probably, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but you'll want to make sure that you have some protections in place. The fortunate thing is most of the women who come into this situation, they just want a donor. They don't really want, and some want co-parenting, and that's, there's all kind of varying degrees of like involvement with the donor. But I would say probably the vast majority of women want just a guy to help them out. And they're probably there to avoid the costs of the sperm bank because, well, it's pricey. And or sometimes they've already spent a lot of money on a sperm bank and they're just looking to save money. Sometimes it's just they're frugal. you know, I mean, if you really apply yourself, you could probably get something for free. But so the women that you encounter are, you know, just wanting some help. But there are other elements to this, and that's of course um, the child or children that result from the donations. They'll probably at one point have questions about their origins. And one of the things I feel pretty strongly about, and if you do research, this isn't the topic of our talk here, but I would suggest doing some research on donor conceived persons, or
Yes.
DCPs, as they're often the acronym, because you'll find that there's a variety of, like, they feel a lot of excitement sometimes when they find their donor, the person who has half, contributed half their DNA. Sometimes they have no interest at all. It just sort of depends on that person, but probably a certain percentage of your offspring are going to want to meet you someday, or just at least have some information. And so that's and I have met a few of my donor children. Some of them are in their mid-teens now. And it's gone pretty smooth for the most part. But they were just curious mainly. They wanted some information. It was more like fact finding, So do some research on donor conceived persons, the legal aspect. I'm going to touch in a bit on the logistics of donating, like how to do AI and how to do some of the, and I'll even talk a little bit about shipping. But the other thing that I would have advice for donors and recipients. The number one factor for a woman getting pregnant is timing, the timing of her cycle. And it's good for the donors to know this, to know the science of the conception, because she's going to be speaking this language. When you enter the world of trying to conceive, or TTC, there's this whole vocabulary that comes out, and you're going to want to know what BFP is, and a peak and LH and all HCP, all of the various terms that go along with trying to conceive, and you're going to be a little lost. And for a woman who wants to get pregnant, like, she is going to want, she's going to need you at a very specific time. And it's kind of hard to get pregnant. Like, you've only got 24 hours a month in a cycle that she can conceive, and you need to get sperm in there just ahead of it. So learn the science of conception, I think, is a very important point to donors.
Yeah. So there are two main points I want to highlight here, which thank you so much. First of all, Joe, for mentioning about donor conceived groups. I really encourage everybody who is thinking about donating or who has already donated, visit these groups. There are so many groups on Facebooks. They are community where these kids actually share that how do they feel when they don't know their genetic parent, and the majority of the time they are being conceived through unknown donation, and that's how they don't know. Sometimes sperm bank don't give away. So Joe will spread light on what is unknown donation, etc., just in a couple of minutes. So that is one point. And Joe, I absolutely agree with you that you mentioned this correctly, that there are days where they really need you. So me being a female, I know that how exactly those hormonal peaks and plunges happen, and that's when we really need somebody who can understand us. And if somebody is considering to be donor, if you can provide a little bit of this push and support, that's a huge favor, honestly, for anybody whom you are helping. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Joe, for mentioning that. Go ahead, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, I think that's the real key, to be honest, is being aware of the timing. And like, you're going to have to be available on a moment's notice, like, and the environment. Some guys need a certain environment to produce an ejaculate in. It's a lot of pressure for new guys. And so you're going to want to find someplace comfortable, and but realize that she's going to need you, like, and you're going to have to be able to do your thing.
So I think, Joe, you have also mentioned a couple of times about the importance of education for this entire cycle monitoring, and knowing when exactly is the window to do it. So can you quickly comment on that, like how they can do it, or like what kind of things which they don't need to know, especially from
You,
the recipient side? Yeah.
you mean for the logistics of
Uh,
performing a donation?
Yeah, no, like understanding when the ovulation is
I
kind
see.
of, yeah.
Yeah. So the typical method, there's a couple different what they call OPKs, or ovulation predictor kits, and become familiar with them. I find the best app for doing this is Premom. Having seen thousands of these strips, I'm kind of a wizard at it now, and can generally tell women. Most of the women that we help, or I help, they've spent their lives trying to avoid pregnancy, and now for the first time they're trying to get pregnant. And they remember in seventh grade sex education. Now the teachers scared them that all you had to really do is look at sperm and you can get pregnant, and they lived like 7 days and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that some of that is a little bit of a stretch. And of course younger women get pregnant more easily, but it's very difficult. And it's very difficult when the guy that you're trying to get pregnant by does not live with you. Right. That's where the logistics of the exchange is really the challenge, and it can take some time, right? So you're going to want to make sure that the timing is good. So the ovulation strips are the important part. I find Easy at Home is compatible with Premom. Those are the strips made for the app. Pregmate's also a good kind. You can sometimes, get the Walmart and CVS brands, but generally if you get them in bulk packages, you're gonna burn through strips for the women. Like you should be testing 3 times a day. Late morning, late afternoon, late evening, because some women can get their surge peak and have it go down. And if you test too far apart, you're gonna miss it. And so you want to be sure that you're testing frequently enough, really from the time that your cycle stops, which is around 4 to 7 days into your cycle. Then you're in the follicular phase at that point. Your body is preparing a follicle for release. And then, when ovulation happens, your luteinizing hormone, which is what the ovulation strips test for, um, that will spike. And then when it hits its peak and your testing line is darker than the control, that is you're going to ovulate within 24 hours. So that's when you really need to be meeting up with your donor at that point. There's a few other kinds, Clear Blue, it's a little pricier. It's a digital system. It's fine. It's great. If you want to drop money, some women, because it's a little difficult for them to track, use 2 different systems to kind of nail it down. And, then there's also basal body tipping, which takes some discipline. A lot of women are surprised that you have to take it very specifically right when you wake up, and you can't sit up in bed or anything. Because once you start moving and your muscles start moving, your core temperature rises, and then your that one's out the window. So, but that can tell you if you've ovulated or not, if you know the pattern to look for in that. So then, and the other thing I'd say about the strips and any sort of testing, you're looking for trends. You're
Yeah.
looking for a series of data, not just. I mean, one individual strip can be helpful, but you're looking to see the luteinizing hormone build. And so for the guys who have never really, like the donors who have never really paid attention to this, learn this, because she's going to be needing you at that exact right time. And if she says, "Oh, I'm peaking," you know what peak means.
Mm. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for even it was useful for the donors to understand. So now let's move to my question about like in this entire journey, can you share like few challenges and reward moments which you face, like experienced in your this entire journey of becoming a donor?
Yeah, well, my the first donations, there was a little bit of panic, like, oh my God, I mean, my DNA is going to be in this person forever. Right. And to come to that sort of comfortability, this is, I think, what some new donors struggle with. And just to prep people on this call, there's a lot of ghosting in this scenario, unfortunately, as some donors get cold feet and some women maybe are not as serious. I mean, but most people are drawn to this because they have an urge to procreate, right, in some way. And so sometimes that urge is just temporary. And they're not in as big a rush to get pregnant as they thought. And maybe the donor's not as big a rush to, you know, give his DNA out as he thought as well. So and some people have ulterior motives, like, they want to make money or whatever. And um your motives are your motives, and that's for you to decide. But I think the biggest challenges are, there's got to be good communication. And some people are, uh, from a donor perspective, who's trying to make this happen for a woman. Sometimes you encounter some women who are very reserved. Now, they have reasons for being reserved, probably, from their own personal history. But that, maybe they're trying to take a step back because they don't want a donor who's going to get involved with their life. The biggest fear of a recipient, and this is good for the donors to know this, is that the donor is going to come for the child. Like, their biggest fear is that the donor is going to want to have some sort of like parental role. And while most donors don't, and sometimes new donors, they're not exactly clear on those feelings. And so a new donor, it's a little bit of a risk. On the other side, a new donor, for some women who want a donor that has fewer donor children, there are women who are like that. You know, a new donor is a nice fit. So, you know, that's but some of the challenge, the communication, you know, you've got to be communicating. I always, with my recipients, say, okay, when your cycle starts, let me know. It gets it on my radar that we're going to be meeting up in a couple of weeks. Then when your cycle stops, let me know. So, because I know that within a day or two, you're going to begin testing.
Yeah.
All right. And then basically every day, if not multiple times a day, they're shooting me pics of screenshots of their strips progression. We're kind of going back and forth on terms of like, okay, yeah, looks like it's coming, or no, looks like it's low. Keep on testing. And then at some point they get the peak, and then we have to sort out the logistics of getting my goods to them. Right. And so that's the real key part. So communication's got to be good. You know, you don't want to have any screw ups.
So it's a teamwork.
Yeah, that's exactly how I like to frame it too, is like this in terms of, if I'm dealing with a lesbian couple, like this is a 3-person team, you know, and we all have to work together, and so, which is why I like to have group chats so that everybody's on the same page, and it gets clarified, you know. So and then the other, I mean, the legal aspect, which I'm going to touch on, that can be a little scary, you know. Definitely understand your state or provincial laws or country, depends on where you live, you know. But there can be some stresses with that. But once you kind of get into the rhythm of it, like, I don't stress about it as much anymore, you know. But yeah, so those are the challenges. The logistical challenges are probably the biggest one with just making a successful donation happen. Think about all the things that have to align here.
Yeah.
I mean, why it's going to be so hard. You have to have a somewhat predictable cycle that you can test for. Even if you're not predictable, you have to be able to be disciplined on testing, right? You have to arrange an exchange method. Now, you know, for AI, that's going to be depend on work schedules. If there's a third person, you know, if it's a lesbian couple, then that's 3 schedules that you have to align. So it gets a little challenging there. And then we have to make sure the timing is good. Then you have to make sure the donor is fertile. And you know, then you have to do the exchange. She has to do the insemination. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to do an AI insemination here in a moment. But and then you have to have one of these millions of sperm penetrate the egg. The egg has to implant, and then it has to develop. And you know, the one thing I was surprised is to learn when I got going is anywhere between 10 and 15% of pregnancies end in a miscarriage, you know. So then it has to be viable and it has to develop. And I mean, it's kind of a miracle if you think about it, all of these things that have to just align so perfectly. I mean, it's 600,000 babies are conceived around the world every single day. And you know, that's uh, so it's not an uncommon event, but it's still a lot of things have to happen, you know.
Yes. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and explain at-home insemination?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the logistics, so like I talked about the meeting up logistics. Now, if I'm going to do this from one of my, I typically do this from one of my offices, but I can tell you I've produced ejaculates in almost any environment you can. I kind of joke sometimes that like I could produce an ejaculate in Times Square on New Year's Eve with Dick Clark looking over my shoulder. um, you know, you gotta get comfortable. But some guys need absolute comfort. They need to be horizontal. That helps. Like, you need to be stimulated, obviously. There, just in terms of from the man's side. So I keep uh, a stack of cups you don't need to have the medicinal or the collection cups necessarily that like you see a sterile doctor's office, that are wrapped. I typically use those little food sample cups like the ladies at the supermarket give you food samples in.
Mhm.
And it's just you can get stacks of them at Walmart. This is not a medical procedure per se.
Yeah.
The vagina is not a sterile environment. And so you just need things clean. They can't be dirty, but you don't have to sterilize everything. Okay. So, in fact, some of that sterilizing could actually be a negative. It could kill sperm. All right. So I keep those stacks just, in my office where I'm going to produce it. Um, I like to use a lubricant. Sometimes my favorite lubricants are vitamin D oil. Um, Canola oil is fine. Baby oil is fine. Almond oil is fine. Olive oil is fine. Um, Pre-seed is fine. But I find pre-seed dries out real fast. And some guys are fortunate enough that they don't need a lubricant, which is great. But if you're careful, you're not going to contaminate what you produce. If you don't really lather yourself up. And then, so I produce it and then walk it out to them in the car. From there, I mean, they take it wherever they want, but most will do it right in the car. A little myth here that sperm start dying after 15 minutes or immediately upon ejaculation. That a sperm can live in the right environment and container over an hour at least in that container. Whenever I've donated, I've been a directed donor at a sperm bank many times. And whenever I do that, the technician will just let it sit in that collection counter or cup on the counter for an hour at room temperature. Then they bring the medium and stuff to the room temperature so it's prepared. All right. So you don't have to rush. Like if you're not in a good position to do the AI, because you're going to be for the woman's perspective, you're going to be nervous. Like you're not going to want to spill anything, and you're going to be a little wary of your surroundings. So get into a comfortable spot. Most of my recipients find a cozy little nook in a parking lot someplace, and they'll do it right in the car. So there are two main ways to do AI. All right. The syringe method, or turkey baster as it's often called, is probably the most common. The device that I recommend is the Walmart lube launcher.
Mhm.
You can Google that. It's got a couple rings for your thumbs to go through, and then a device about that long, and it goes in nice and easy, and has a rounded tip, which is gentler on the misses for women. You don't want to scrape up in there, and a medicinal syringe works fine. It just tends to have a pointy tip on it, and it can kind of damage things in there. So if you're doing that, you're going to have to be laying down, because you're going to want the sperm to gravity to pull the sperm and the seminal fluid into the cervix so it can intermix with cervical mucus. Okay. And you'll learn about cervical mucus in the science of conception, but it has to be there for a woman to conceive. And then I suggest, so do not use pre-seed liberally inside. There's another myth I want to dispel here. Some women are insecure about and want to super energize the sperm. And pre-seed is a sexual lubricant that was designed to help straight couples conceive. And when they needed a little lubrication, and it interferes less than other lubricants. It still interferes. Okay. And some women use it and conceive despite using it. But your body knows what to do. And I only mention this because, don't spread pre-seed all around your cervix, and because it can often prevent sperm from it creates an additional barrier for sperm to swim through. Okay. But I do find pre-seed is helpful for giving a light coating of lubrication on the shaft of the inseminating device. as well as if you're going to use the instead ring, that's another great use for it. But when you're doing the thing, so you've got yourself in your position, you're tilted back, slide the thing in. You can give it a normal plunge. You don't have to forcefully ejaculate, and you don't have to go really slow. It's not going to kill sperm coming through the tip. All right, the sperm are microscopic, so the opening is going to be fine, and it comes out of a man at something like 78 miles per hour. All right, so um, you can just squeeze it and put it in. Now, I suggest just leaving it in, sort of leaving her plugged with it in there, so that you don't want to extract it when it's pulled out. You don't want to pull everything with it. So now, if you kick back and for 45 minutes or so, that's probably a good time window, 45 minutes, an hour. Any of the quality sperm that are capable of swimming through your uterus, up through your fallopian tubes, and reaching an egg and penetrating the egg are inside of you generally within 45 minutes to an hour. So if you stand up and the seminal fluid drains out, you don't need to freak. The good sperm, if you've intermixed it with your cervical mucus, have already found their way inside of you, and you're just, what you're experiencing is the seminal fluid draining out, and there's not any live sperm in it. All right. So now the other method, which can complement the syringe method, is the menstrual cup. Right. This is a little diaphragm looking device with a little sac underneath it that when you put it in, it's you got to pinch it together and slide it in. Now, most women put those things in dry because it's for catching menstrual flow. And in this case, we're putting it in to cup the cervix with the seminal fluid. And so you're putting it in with seminal fluid in it. And that can be a little tricky. So practice it. Now, for some women, this is a great method. Like some women, it's not a problem. And the nice thing is you can just kind of walk around and go about your day and everything's going to be fine. You're potentially getting pregnant while you're at work. So those are the two ways. My advice is to practice them both and go with the method that you're most confident in, because you're going to be nervous and you want to make sure that you're doing something that you're confident in.
That was very helpful, and I think we will also post this particular section where Joe is explaining things into groups so that other people can also have benefit of knowledge which Joe just explained. So now we are at 7:44, and I think we'll have to take a small break for just showing the demo, and then we'll come back to Joe again for question and answer. So I am sharing my screen. It will be very quick, promise. So this is how Gokiru looks. And so I'm acting as a recipient right now. So as soon as you enter, as you can see, this is the home screen. Here you will find the nearby donors, and there are many other things which you can do on the profile homepage. So for example, let's see some of the donors. So this is how you'll be able to browse donors. So these are some of the real donors which we have. And while browsing these donors, you will be able to see what is their age, how much far they are, and you will also be able to see the description of the donor. And the best part is you will be able to go back to the previous donor. So it's not like swipe in or swipe right or swipe left kind of donor profiles. So for example, if you like some donor, for example, here is Pranay's profile and I really like him, suppose. So as you can see, I can like him. I can also be able to bookmark this donor for the further references, and I can check about this donor's further information by clicking on it. So, for example, I can see the physical characteristics, background information, his professional and educational detail, as well as his some of the medical reports which he has shared. And the best part, uh, if this donor has previously donated to somebody, and if that person wants to leave the review for the donor, I'm sure Joe will have like plenty of reviews from the previous recipients. uh, Recipient will be able to see those review for the donor, so that really helps to establish the credibility of the donor. As well as, if you have seen, there is this a little progress bar over here which is of 72%. So it actually mentions how much complete the donor's profile is. So more the complete, the more the, it can give you like sense of security that okay, this person is ready to share these many information with you. Plus you can see this tick here. So that shows that this particular donor is verified. So that also brings peace of mind for recipients part. So we really encourage donors to provide as much information as they are comfortable with, because that will help even recipient to feel secure about it. And I think that way they might actually have more a preference for you. So once I like this donor, I can actually chat with this person, and I can share all sorts of information, like I can share images, location, because location is very important. When you will say, suppose you want to meet this donor and you want to share the location, you can share the location and you can just meet it. But the best part here is I can actually request new medical report. So suppose I want to, ask for this donor's genetic report. So I can literally place request over here and I can send the request to this particular donor. When I do this, this donor will be notified for that. And suppose if this donor is asking me for, what, that's absolutely okay if you want a genetic report. They might ask you to pay for that. If they ask you for paying for that, like just like this, so you will be able to see what kind of charges it is. And the best part, you'll be able to pay them through Gokido. So there is no longer be any kind of shady transaction that people will take your money and they will vanish, because once you pay it, Gokido will hold it for you, and once you provide the delivery verification, Gokido will release the money to donor. So we are trying to bring that way, we are trying to make it more secure and safe and reliable for you, because all we want is like to create this safe space where you can transact with the donor. And not only medical report donor, you can also pay donor for say transportation, or sometimes people ask for, what, give me some traveling expense or any other kind of expense. You can pay all of them, and Gokido will help you to make it secure transaction. So that is about donor and chatting with them. Now, suppose you have some kind of legal doubts, so you can go to this seeking legal guidance section. You will be able to get as many answers as you have, because these are curated by our fertility lawyers who are based in United States, and they have personally curated this question and answer, so that can give you detail. But as you can see, there is one thing which is coming soon, is more about you will be able to download the template in your particular state, which is more state compliant donor recipient contract template. So you can fill that contract template. It has like it is more of your state wise made. It is made your state wise, and if you want to add some more thing, you will be able to connect with some of the fertility lawyers which we have partnered with, and we'll connect with you to them. So I think that is about, and you can over here, you can see the donors who liked you. So I think you will not be spammed by any donors. They can send you requests and then you can accept it, and make it more of a proper connection with the donor. So I think that is all I had to show you about Gokidu. So if anybody who is interested to be part of it, our app is already available on Google and Apple Store, and explore it. So that was like a small demo. Now coming back to Joe, I want to open this floor for question and answer. So anybody who has a question, they can raise your hand. And Pranay,